What happened to the Philistines when they brought the Ark of God among them? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 1 Samuel on walking through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing 1 Samuel chapter 5, verses 1 to 12, but before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to 1 Samuel chapter 5, verse 1, but if you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 1 Samuel chapter 5, beginning at verse 1. Then the Philistines took the Ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. When the Philistines took the Ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. And when the people of Ashdod arose early in the morning, there was Dagon fallen on his face to the earth before the Ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and set it in its place again. And when they arose early the next morning, there was Dagon fallen on its face to the ground before the Ark of the Lord. The head of Dagon and both of the palms of its hands were broken off on the threshold. Only Dagon's torso was left of it. Therefore neither the priests of Dagon nor any who came into Dagon's house tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod to this day. But the hand of the Lord was heavy on the people of Ashdod, and he ravaged them and struck them with tumors, both Ashdod and its territory. And when the men of Ashdod saw how it was, they said, "The Ark of God of Israel must not remain with us, for his hand is harsh towards us and Dagon, our God." Therefore they sent and gathered to themselves all the lords of the Philistines, and said, "What shall we do with the Ark of God of Israel?" And they answered, "Let the Ark of the God of Israel be carried away to Gath." So they carried the Ark of the God of Israel away. So it was, after that they had carried it away, that the hand of the Lord was against the city with a very great destruction. And he struck the men of the city, both small and great, and tumors broke out on them. Therefore they sent the Ark of God to Ekron. So it was, as the Ark of God came to Ekron, that the Ekronites cried out, saying, "They have brought the Ark of the God of Israel to us, to kill us and our people." So they sent and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines, and said, "Send away the Ark of the God of Israel, and let it go back to its own place, so that it does not kill us and our people." For there was a deadly destruction throughout all the city. The hand of God was very heavy there, and the men who did not die were stricken with the tumors, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. The Philistines had defeated Israel in battle, killed Hophni and Phinehas, taken the Ark of the Covenant captive, and it is implied later that they destroyed Shiloh too, the place where the tabernacle was. As a result, Eli and Phinehas' wife also died, though not in battle. Phinehas' wife, before dying, gave birth to a son and named him Ichabod, which likely means no glory. For the Philistines, though, this was a major victory, one that I'm sure that they thought that their gods had delivered for them in triumph over Israel's God. But that, of course, was not true, for the Lord was punishing Israel, and specifically the house of Eli, for their sins. He was with the Philistines, not in the sense that he approved of their idolatry, but in the sense that he used them to accomplish his purpose. As we've seen in other places in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, God will use the sin of man in order to accomplish whatever purpose he has set forth. God did not cause the sin, but he uses man's sin in order to punish him, reprove him, or in the case of Jesus, to save mankind from sin. The Philistines made the mistake of thinking that they were righteous because they defeated Israel, when in fact they weren't. They took the Ark of the Covenant to the temple of their god Dagon, which was in Ashdod. Now from Judges we know that there were temples to Dagon in other cities of the Philistines too, one being Gaza. But the temple mentioned here in 1 Samuel is Ashdod. By taking it into the temple of Dagon and setting it next to the idol, they were using the Ark of God as a trophy of their god Dagon. They're saying that Dagon had vanquished Jehovah. God, though, was going to teach them otherwise. For the next morning, when the people of Ashdod rose early in the morning, Dagon had fallen on its face to the ground before the Ark of God. In other words, it was bowing down before the Ark, which represented the presence of Jehovah. Now perhaps someone had come and done this, or something knocked it down. So Dagon was taken up and placed in its place again. This scene is quite comical if you think about it. Dagon, this powerful god that supposedly defeated Jehovah, and yet he couldn't pick his own statue up. Men had to do it for him. In truth, he didn't exist, but is one of the many false gods that people worship. God, though, was going to remove any doubt as to whether the previous night's events were an accident. For the next morning, when the people came, they found that the head, arms, and hands of the idol had been broken off, leaving only the torso behind. Now the idol Dagon had the head, arms, and hands of a man or a woman, and that the rest of the idol was in the form of a fish. All that was human in his form was broken off from what resembled a fish. Here was a proof that the affair was not accidental, and these proofs of God's power and authority prepared the way for his judgments. And what judgments they were, for God not only broke the idol into pieces that day, he ravaged the people with tumors, which probably means the disease called the bleeding piles, which is usually accompanied with dysentery, bloody diarrhea, and painful hemorrhoids. Chapter 6 also lays open the possibility that there was also an infestation of mice, something that could bring such disease. The Septuagint adds the infestation of mice to chapter 5, but the Hebrew versions leave that out, so whether there actually was an infestation is unclear. The people of Ashdod are at least not stupid, realizing that these things all started when they brought the Ark of God into their midst. So they gathered the 5 lords of the Philistines together, and it was decided that the ark be carried away to Gath, a city about 19 kilometers or 12 miles from Ashdod. That didn't solve the problem, for God simply afflicted that city with these tumors. So the ark was then sent to Ekron, a city 8 kilometers or 5 miles north of Gath. When the ark got there, the people of Ekron suffered the same fate. Thus, the people decided that the best thing to do was to send the ark back to Israel in order that God doesn't kill them all. Such was a prudent choice based on what had happened to them. Now you might ask, if God allowed the Philistines to defeat Israel and capture the ark, why did he punish the Philistines so severely? Because they worshipped their god Dagon instead of him. From the passage, God wasn't punishing the Philistines for merely possessing the ark. He was punishing them for their idolatry in bringing his ark into a temple of their false god. Had they done otherwise and turned to him, we don't know what God would have done, but I do know that it wouldn't have been this, for God desires all to repent and turn to him. The events that took place here are probably the basis for some of the storyline found in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. For in that movie, whoever possessed the ark seemingly had difficulties, and some even died because of it. What we know here was it wasn't the ark that possessed magical powers. God caused these things, and he caused them in order to punish sin. We'll find out how the Philistines sent the ark back to Israel, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, I hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 1 Samuel chapter 6, verses 1 to 9, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.